So now I want to talk about the Spurs' options with their picks. So let's begin with the second pick again. So option one, which is probably the safest pick, is to just draft Dylan Harper. So again, that's the most the most likely option, the most the safest option. So let's just talk about this scenario. So again, all the mocks do point to Harper being the second best prospect behind only Cooper Flagg, who's going to be going first to Dallas. Now, also, a draft analyst, who's very plugged into with other organizations and things like that, is ESPN writer Jonathan Givony, who is one of their best draft writers over at ESPN, and one of their he scouts different players all over the world. Anyway, here's what Givony said from the combine this past week on a broadcast. He said this. He said, "Dylan Harper is going to be the number 2 pick in the draft. I am 99.9% sure about it. The San Antonio Spurs are signaling to teams that they are very excited about the opportunity to draft Dylan Harper. They are not pursuing trades from what we're hearing. They think they can play Harper together with Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox in the same backcourt." So again, that was Givony, again, who's very plugged into the draft world, saying that Harper again is the clear-cut favorite, and in his opinion, almost 100% chance he does think that Harper's going to go number 2 to the Spurs. And right now, at that moment, during the middle of the week when he gave that comment on the broadcast, he was basically reporting that the Spurs weren't looking to trade that pick and that they were going to be happy with Harper. So just continuing with the Harper angle here, I would just say too that there's going to be some pressure for the Spurs to again go with more so like the consensus, which is Dylan Harper, and not really not look at maybe somebody like Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe or some of those other players out there, that are not the clear cut number 2. But again, I do want to say that the Spurs will do what they always do in the draft, where they're going to do their homework, where they're going to talk to their scouting department, look at what their scouts have said over the years, scouting these players. They're probably gonna have their chance to interview some of these players. They're gonna look at what data and observations they got from the NBA draft combine, where Harper and a lot of the top 10 picks were present. And then also, of course, they're going to do their own homework, which is digging into a player's background as well. So again, like the Spurs have always done throughout each draft, as they've talked about, they'll continue to do that. But again, right now the consensus looks like it is Dylan Harper, and if the Spurs were to zag and go after someone else, that puts a little bit more pressure if that player doesn't shake out to be one of the better prospects, down the road. That's a little bit more risky of a gamble, it looks like, early on. However, the second option the Spurs have with this pick, number 2, is they could trade the pick. Again, this doesn't look like the most likely option right now, but it is an option that's out there. And of course, just in my opinion, I do think that if they are going to trade this pick, it would have to be for a superstar, not just an all-star or a former all-star. It has to be a player who's one of the top players in the league. And of course, that one player who might be available is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So what we know about Giannis' situation is that according to Chris Haynes, Giannis will be meeting with the Milwaukee Bucks this coming week, where he is going to talk to the Bucks' front office about what's their direction. Do they have a chance to still put a championship roster together around him? And if you want to talk about why I think that's very difficult for the Bucks to do, you can go back and listen to last week's episode where I kind of discussed the Bucks' front office situation, with Dame hurt, with not a lot of financial tools, resources available to really upgrade the roster, and a lot of draft picks either to really make big trades going forward, especially with Dame hurt. So again, I had talked about all those angles about the Bucks' situation and why it's difficult to build another championship team around Giannis in that last episode. But again, we'll get a clear-cut answer most likely this week, where reporting might come out from Shams or Chris Haynes, breaking Giannis wants out of Milwaukee, and then you might see just names, teams kind of thrown out there, or maybe a list of teams that Giannis wants to go play for. Or it could be that, hey, Giannis is staying loyal to the Bucks. He thinks they can stay. They talked to him, they gave him their plans going forward, what possibilities there are to continue to try to compete for championships, and so maybe that he will give them another shot this coming year and stay with them. So again, that news could come out this week. And of course, if it comes out that Giannis wants out, you're going to see, like I mentioned last week, that the Spurs' name is going to be linked to the Bucks, the Giannis situation, just because of what they have. They're one of the teams, along with like the Houston Rockets, the Brooklyn Nets, who have draft picks. They have some young players. So again, and then just the fact that the Spurs got the number 2 pick, that makes that makes a potential trade package look even better for Milwaukee's situation if they were going to look at moving Giannis. So again, even if right now, again, like Givony said, right now the Spurs aren't looking to trade the pick. they're going to continue to probably be in this rumor mill with the Giannis situation, unless it becomes clear that we get word this coming week that Giannis does not want out of Milwaukee. He wants to stick it out another year, and then I think a lot of that those trade chatter for the number 2 pick kind of goes away. I think that then it just becomes more clear that probably the Spurs are going to stay with option number 1, which is the safe option, and just stick with drafting Dylan Harper. But again, we'll kind of get those answers this coming week if we do get word that Giannis wants out or he wants to stay with Milwaukee. So again, that's where that situation stands with the number 2 pick. The options with the 14th pick for the Spurs, which they have again from the Atlanta Hawks. Here are some players that are currently mocked at 14. When I ran my mock simulation this past week, they're 6'9", Noah Essingu of Ratio Farm Ulm. They're 6'9", Igor Demon of BYU. They're 6'8", Carter Bryant of Arizona. They're 6'3", guard Jace Richardson of Michigan State, and then 6'10", Joan Behringer of Civita Olympia. All mocked on different mocks to the Spurs at 14. Again, those are just the initial mocks. I do want to say that I will be doing some homework on these players, scouting these players, watching some tape, and kind of figure out who they are and maybe who is one of the better prospects there at 14 for the Spurs. But the Spurs' options here could be. They have 2 choices obviously here too as well. With 14, they can draft a player, or they can look to trade, either trade down in this draft, maybe take the 20s and get a pick in the 20s plus maybe another future first, or maybe 2 seconds. They could look to trade into a future draft, down the line, like they did last year with Minnesota when they traded, they drafted Rob Dillingham for the Wolves, and then the Spurs got a future pick from Minnesota. So again, there's different options that they could go with that 14th pick. If there's not a clear-cut player that they have in mind there, they could look at trading that pick either down in this draft with more assets coming in, or for a future pick as well, to kind of just keep that future draft asset chest filled with just different options for the remaining career of Wemby when they can make bigger trades later on down the road. So yeah, those are the 2 options that they basically have with 14, that 14th pick. So again, we'll kind of see what happens. And I will say too that we have seen this front office, GM Brian Wright, be more active in trades, like we saw last year with him trading that second first top 10 pick last year as well. So Brian Wright will has made several trades already in his career as the Spurs' GM. So again, that's not something that would be surprising if San Antonio trades out of the 14th pick. And then also the Spurs will have the 38th pick in the second round of this draft. And right now, there's the second round's always tougher to call about, who the Spurs might take or which teams might take who at second, just because there's players all over the board in that range. Could be bigs, could be wings, could be guards. Right now, just based on some of the players I watched in college, one of my favorite players, and I will do more homework on this player and other draft prospects, is Chaz Lanier from Tennessee. I just think that the Spurs definitely need outside shooting, and he's one of the players that I really liked, watching at Tennessee for his outside shooting ability. But again, I will do more draft scouting for this upcoming draft and seeing some prospects who could be there at the 38th pick range. So again, those are the options for the Spurs with the second overall pick, the 14th pick, and also the 38th pick.